Okay, I should go ahead and do number 9 as well, just to be safe here. This kind of puts together a few algebraic ideas as well as the geometric ideas. Of course, I'm your geometry teacher. I'm concerned more about your geometry, but there's a lot of algebra involved here. So we got to make sure your algebra skills are up to par. So again, we have a trapezoid given here, and we got the bases here that are parallel, and we're given the mid-segment, and we're looking for a way to find x. We've got an expression for x for both of that involves x in both of the bases. The different thing that's happening here is we have a quadratic. So right away you should be thinking, I might have a quadratic equation I have to solve. You know, call me crazy, but okay, crazy, but no, call me crazy. But if you see a quadratic equation and you know you're going to have some algebra to solve for x, you might have to think about factoring, where you have a binomial times a binomial, right? There's probably going to be some factoring involved. Almost every problem you have in high school that involves something with an x squared, you're going to end up factoring at some point, right? So don't be scared of it. So what's the relationship here? We know that the bases, when added together, the bases have an average of the mid-segment, right? So what's our equation? If you haven't tried this one yet, try to set it up again. Push pause. I'm going to go ahead and go on. If you haven't tried it yet, go ahead and try it. Push pause. Okay, so the bases are 2x minus 7 and x squared plus x minus 3. Now, if we want the average of those two, we have to add them together, right? We have to add them together and divide by 2 to get the mid-segment, because the mid-segment is the average of those two, right? Sorry, I'm not very... Okay, so that's our equation. It looks kind of complicated. Again, one thing we've learned in some of these problems is to actually get rid of this 2 by multiplying by 2 on both sides, right? So we get the 2 to cancel here. Well, let me use a different color. Get the 2 to cancel here. We get the 15 times the 2 on the right, which is 30. And we get this algebraic expression. Now, again, I have a quadratic, so let me go ahead and write it in quadratic form, where I put it in standard form with the x squared in front. I got 2x plus x, which is 3x. And I got minus 7 minus 3 is minus 10. Okay. Now, I've got a quadratic. A lot of you struggle on this part right here, right? This is the part where you struggle. You got a quadratic, you forget what to do. This is obviously going to turn into a factoring situation, so you want to get everything equal to 0. Now, be careful with your algebra. A lot of times you guys lose the equal sign. You just start throwing numbers together, right? And you got no idea. It's like somebody cooking, and they're just, I know flour is involved. I know there's some water. I know there's some oil. Let me just throw it all together, and I should get a cake, right? So some of you just throwing numbers around. You take out your calculator out of your man's ear, and you start throwing things around, and you just hope at the end you're going to get the answer. Well, you can't do that, right? You got to follow the proper algebraic skills. So I want to get this equal to 0. If I want to get this equal to 0, I'm going to do some algebra by subtracting 30 on both sides. Okay. Now, again, let's not mess up the algebra here. We got to be careful. Okay. Nothing happened to the x squared. Nothing happened to the 3x. I had to subtract 30 on both sides of the equation. So I can only combine like terms. So x squared stays the same. 3x stays the same. And we get minus 40 in here, right? Let me just rewrite that guy. X squared plus 3x minus 40 equals 0. Okay. Now, what do I do with that? That is a quadratic. We usually get this to factor into something that looks like this, right? Equal to 0. Then you know each of these terms has to be 0. Okay. If you haven't tried this yet and you struggle on this, try it now. Now, we had different algebra teachers, right? But the The way I'd like to do this, you see that this is an x squared with a 1 in front. So you really only have to factor the 40, right? If you had a number in front of here, you'd have to multiply the two numbers and figure out how to get that middle term. But now it's really simple. We got to look for factors of negative 40. What numbers multiply to get negative 40? That also have a sum of positive 3. Okay. Now 40 has a lot of factors, right? You got 2 times 20. You got 1 times 40. 3 doesn't go into it. 4 goes into it. 4 times, oh, sorry, this was 2 times 20. 4 times 10, right? What else? You got 5. 5 goes into it. 5 times 8. And then when you get where these numbers are really close, you may only have 1 or 2 more factors, right? 6 doesn't go into it. 7 doesn't go into 40. Okay. And now we're at 8. Now we're going backwards. So now we've got all the factors. Of course, there's only one way you can get a positive number in the middle, right? Is you've got to have the positive number bigger because we're adding a positive and a negative together. If we get negative 40, one of these has to be positive, one has to be negative, right? So I'm thinking of ways to add these numbers to get a positive 3 where one is positive, one is negative, okay? So in other words, I'm thinking which one subtract to get 3? Well, 8 and 5 subtract to get 3. If I made 5 negative and 8 positive, I would get a positive 3, right? So that means I need to have x minus 5, that factor, and x plus 8. If I do that, right, and I check my foiling, right, if I go ahead and FOIL this out, x times x is x squared, negative 5 times x is negative 5x. We get x times 8 is positive 8x. Right? You see the 8 and the 5 show up right there, right? And the negative 8 times 5 is negative 40, right? And you would see that that actually gives us back what we had, x squared plus 3x minus 40. So that's always a way you can check if you're factoring right? Like people, again, you guys just like start throwing flour and water and oil, eggs. Let me throw a couple eggs in there. You don't even bother like cracking the shell and throwing the shell away. You're throwing the shell in there. You just hope you get the right answer. You have no way to go back and check. Take the cake out of the oven and see if you actually got a cake, right? So that's the problem here. You guys got to be careful. So here right now, I checked to make sure that factored into giving us what we wanted. And I was right? There's so many ways in math to check your answer. I'm going to go ahead and erase this. Okay. No need to have all that. Now, we had this as the factors. What do we do from here? Now, here's another place people make mistakes. They say x equals negative 5 and x equals negative 8. Sorry, positive 8. Maybe they get it from here. They're saying, oh, the answers are negative 5 and 8. I can't have a negative number. You look back to the diagram, so the answer is positive 8, right? No, remember, these are the factors. These are the factors, x minus that number and x plus that number. The way we solve that from here is we say x minus 5 equals 0 or x plus 8 equals 0. One of those has to be true. So x equals positive 5 or x equals negative 8. Okay? Now when you look back to the diagram and you plug in negative 8 in up here, you can see that's going to be a problem. So that doesn't make sense, right? Negative 16 minus 7, we can't have a negative side length. So I'm going to go ahead and cross that buddy out, right? That's no good. Now, we should check to see if x equals 5 works, right? Because we got a quadratic. We don't know if this really works. Plug 5 in. We're going to plug 5 in here. We're going to plug 5 in here for x, okay? So what do we get? On the top, we get 10 minus 7 is 3. On the bottom, we get 5 squared is 25. Plus 5 minus 3 is 30 minus 3, which is 27. So I got 27 and 3. Does that give me a average of 15? So 27 plus 3 over 2, does that give me 15? Right? And my video is about to kick me off. Yes, it does. Okay? 30 divided by 2 is 15. I'm about ready to get kicked off. I know this is a long video. Hope you learned something from it, and have a great day.